and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world: movies, movie news, TV, streaming, all sorts of good stuff. And for those of you watching live today, if you didn't know, the John Campea Show actually does go live every day, Monday through Friday, at 10 a.m. Los Angeles time. Today we started a little bit late. We had to start today at 11 because I had a follow-up dentist appointment this morning, and my dentist is actually like an hour away, so I wasn't able to go do that and be back in time for our regular 10 a.m. start time. And unfortunately, that meant Rob wasn't going to be able to be with us here today. But hey, listen, guys, just so you know, on tomorrow's John Campea Show, it's actually going to be pretty fun. I've got a pair that has never done a show together. We've got Aaron Cummings on the show tomorrow, and we've got From Real Rejects, Greg Alba on the show tomorrow. So that should be a lot of fun. I am actually very, very excited about that show tomorrow. So I'm extremely pumped for that. Anyway, guys, so here's how basically today's show is going to. Normally we have 3 or 4 topics lined up, and then we go in to take the live comments and questions. And we're still going to do our live comments and questions today, but something kind of came out the other day that has kind of dominated the news cycle as far as movies and the world of entertainment, stuff like that goes. You guys, of course, know that out of nowhere, hit us like a truck in the crosswalks, like John Cena coming out of nowhere. Scarlett Johansson sued Disney. She decided to come out of nowhere and sue Disney. And then we found out why. We've been talking about that for the last couple of days. But yesterday, and by the way, Mason Larkin sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Mason. Appreciate that. But yesterday, things got a little bit more interesting. Because you guys know, I've been telling you for a few weeks now that there is infighting going on over at Disney. I've told that to you guys a few weeks ago. I've been mentioning it a couple of times, that there is almost like a little bit of a brewing civil war over there. So we've been hearing, and that there has been a lot of disagreement over there about how stuff has been handled and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of been an evolving situation. But then last night, one of the major trades in the industry, like not a Gus's gas station movie reviews.fart site like mine, one of the major trades last night, The Wrap, put out an article that basically gives us some insight as to what's going on at Disney, and it is far worse than any of us imagined it was. At least I'll speak for myself. It's far worse than even I imagined that it was over there. Now, of course, you guys know the background to this. Bob Iger has led Disney for like over 15 years. He led it to unprecedented success after success after success. He took their stock price from something like $20 to like $200. I mean, he just oversaw and steered the ship through its biggest expansion in its history, to the point where it almost felt like nothing could possibly stop the good ship Disney. Well, then Bob Iger, being an older gentleman and saying, you know what, man, I have earned myself some good retirement. I've earned myself some of the good life. It's time for me to look at stepping away. So they named a successor in Bob Chapek. And when they named Bob Chapek, some moron whose name rhymes with Han Yampia, some moron out there, again, whose name rhymes with Jan Hampia, but we won't call this gentleman out by name. I'm sure he's a very handsome, attractive, Italian-Canadian gentleman. But some moron out there said, oh, this is a great pick. This Bob Chapek guy, this is a great pick. He knows the company. He's been on the inside of the company. He knows this thing. Iger has worked with him. He knows the business. This is a good successor. This is a good successor for Bob Iger. And again, some moron out there on YouTube saying, don't worry, everybody, this is a perfectly good pick. Well, then what happened after that? We started to see some things happening that started getting, I'm going to come clean. I am John Campea. I was referring to myself. In case you didn't know, I was referring to myself. So what happened then, this big, bright optimism I had, telling everybody that this was a great pick, I started to get worried when we started to see some of the first major decisions that Bob Chapek started to make. And we did a video on this months ago that really started to make some of us diehard Disney fans and some of us guys who supported the selection of Bob Chapek started to get a little bit worried. Let's jump over to the classroom just for a moment here, shall we? Let's jump over to the Campea classroom. So here's the thing. Under Bob Iger, and you guys will remember, we talked about this a few months ago. There were a couple of key pillars that kind of hallmarked Bob Iger's leadership at Disney. Number one, he empowered the creators. Not just I'm not talking about the directors and the actors, but like the heads of the individual studios. The heads of Pixar, of Disney Pictures, of Disney Animation, of Lucasfilm, and of course, of Marvel. He empowered these creators and these studio heads to make decisions about the content they were going to create, how they were going to go about creating it, and even ultimately where their creations would end up. Were they going to be straight to home video things, or were they going to be theatrical releases? Bob Iger, and through his main lieutenant, Alan Horn, they really empowered the creators. Another pillar of Iger's reign was that he was often removing unnecessary bureaucracy. Like, nothing frustrated Iger more than pointless middle management. Now, there is middle management that is needed at times and in places, but there's also times and places where middle management isn't necessary. And Iger, on several occasions, went through and brushed away and got rid of unnecessary bureaucracy. He got rid of middle management. He streamlined things, which is not easy to do when you're a company as big as Disney. Another thing Iger did, he installed capable leaders. And I'm not just talking about the Kevin Feiges, and I'm not just talking about, the heads of Disney Animation and Disney Pictures and the new heads of Pixar and all that kind of stuff, but also the different departments. He would work with his executive vice presidents, his presidents, all that kind of stuff. They always made sure they got qualified, sharp, experienced people. Always got qualified, sharp, experienced people. Now, some of you might be saying, but he got Kathleen Kennedy. Well, she was George Lucas's pick, so there you go. But he always installed capable leaders. But another big thing that I don't think we've really talked about before, but a lot of people have been talking about recently, and they are right to, which is Bob Iger spent a lot of time and energy strengthening industry relationships. He strengthened obviously they were adversarial sometimes, but he would strengthen the relationships between Disney and other studios. He would strengthen the relationship of Disney with the various unions. He would strengthen the relationship of Disney's with theater owners. He was always doing everything. He was the consummate diplomat. He was a king and a diplomat all at the same time. Nay, a warrior poet. That's Bob Iger. And that's what he would do. He would empower creators. He would remove unnecessary bureaucracy. He would install capable leaders, and he would strengthen industry relationships. And the results of these pillars was an unprecedented era of growth and strength and success for the Disney brand name in all areas. But here on this show, we mostly focus on that of on-screen entertainment. The streaming service. He's the one who got their Disney Plus thing up and running. Under him, we saw the rise of Marvel and everything else. Unprecedented billion-dollar film after billion-dollar film after billion-dollar film, but also their market reach, their pop cultural influence. It was just unprecedented. So, and of course there were bumps along the way. There were absolutely some bumps along the way. Absolutely. But the signs of great leadership isn't when mistakes happen or when bumps happen. It's how quickly does that leader adapt and respond to the bumps and misdirection and missteps that happen. And he always took care of them incredibly quick. When the missteps would happen. But now let's for a second about under Chapek. All right. Well, he basically has step by step started to tear down those 4 pillars. Under Chapek, he has, what's the best word for it? He's neutered. I don't even know if I'm spelling that right. I've never had to write the word neutered before. There we go. He is neutered the creators. The individual studio heads now have about half the amount of power and influence that they used to have. In many instances now, the individual studio heads, the individual presidents from Disney Pictures, Disney Animation, Pixar, Marvel, whatever, sometimes they're not even the ones making decisions as to what content they're going to create, and they certainly no longer have the authority to decide where their content goes anymore. They've completely neutered it. And again, we covered this in a video about a number of months ago, so that's the one thing that is. He's also added layers of middle management. Whereas Bob Chapek or Bob Iger was removing bureaucracy, what Bob Chapek has done is he's created new layers of middle management to buffer between creators and the upper heads of Disney, and putting people in there that would make a lot of decisions that used to be relegated to the individual creators' heads. So that's another thing. And as far as installing capable leaders, he's installed his friends. A great example of this is he's got this new head of distribution that basically has all the power in the entertainment division, deciding what content gets made and where it's going to go. And you know who he got to fill that position? A banker. I'm not kidding. But it was a banker who's loyal to him and who's a buddy of his. So he went out and got a banker, a guy whose decisions trump Kevin Feige's when it comes to what happens to Marvel Entertainment. And as far as strengthening relationships goes, he's burned relationships with unions, actors, directors, and many of his own execs and theaters. He's just burned relationships. That's just what he's done since he's gotten here. He's just burned relationships. So a number of months ago, I, as that moron online who was telling everybody, this is great, Bob Chapek's going to be on. That's me. Bob Chapek's going to be great, everybody. What are you complaining about? And all the Disney Parks fans were like, guys, you have no idea. This guy has ruined Disney Parks. I'm like, you're just sad. You're just sad. He's going to be great. He's going to be great. I'm pretty sure that's how I sounded. And then I started seeing all that. And I'm like, okay, I'm a little bit worried. This guy has some fundamentally terrible concepts about what being a leader is. So a little bit worried. And then, of course, the whole ScarJo situation comes up. But here's the thing. The ScarJo situation is even worse than we anticipated. Now, I'm going to read through this article that came from the Wrap, written by the founder of the Wrap, by the way. So this is somebody with decades of industry connections, loads of inside connections at Disney, all this sort of stuff. And we're going to take a look at this article that Sharon wrote and really dissect about just how bad things at Disney are right now in those upper offices. How these things have led directly to the mess they find them in with Scarlett Johansson, and how Bob Iger, Big Papa Iger himself, is, quote, embarrassed and mortified how Bob Chapek and Disney has managed this situation with Scarlett Johansson. And it's ugly. So we're going to go into it line by line here because I think there's a lot to react to. I think there's a lot to react to here. So I want us to go through this and really take a look at it here, okay? So let's start. It's a short article as far as feature articles go, but let's take a look at this. So first of all, the title of the article is Inside Disney, How the Bob Iger, Bob Chapek Riff Led to the Scarlett Johansson Blunder. And she writes this. She starts off with this. It turns out that corporate rifts have consequences. It's an open secret in Hollywood that Disney executive chairman Bob Iger and CEO Bob Chapek have been estranged for months, dating back to the very start of last year's pandemic. Now the consequences of that estrangement are becoming clear. We started hearing whispers shortly after Bob Chapek assumed the throne that, and of course, Bob Iger was still there as chairman of the board and all that kind of stuff, but we heard almost instantly there was a wedge that started to be driven between the two Bobs, and that there was a division growing between them to the point where we heard that they just simply stopped talking to each other. They just didn't talk to each other anymore. And that's bad. I don't know if you know that. I'm not a communications expert, but business partners not talking to each other, that's bad. A little bit of business school there for you. A little bit of business 101. Anyway, became clear. Then she goes on to write this. My sources tell me. Now remember, again, this is not Gus's gas station movie reviews.fart. This is The Wrap, the founder of The Wrap, with decades of years of connections, relationships tied with inside Disney and all the other studios. She writes this. My sources tell me that Iger and Chapek do not interact regularly. But that is pretty damn obvious, given the embarrassing lawsuit that Scarlett Johansson filed last week, accusing Disney of breaching her contract for box office-based profit participation on Black Widow after the movie was released day and date on Disney's streaming service Disney+. And worse, there was an insane foot-and-mouth response to the lawsuit in which a spokesperson for the company a company that laid off 32,000 workers during the pandemic, officially castigated Johansson for callous disregard for the horrific and prolonged global effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, and then revealed her $20 million base salary. Excuse me? What? Yeah, like we've talked at length about the absolute insane public statement that Disney put out. A public statement that Bob Iger never would have let go out the door. Never would have let out the door. That one statement, I believe, permanently burned any bridges that Disney will ever have with Scarlett Johansson again, with any of the clients of Scarlett Johansson's management company, and burned a lot of bridges with the people of the Actors Union as well, who all came out and denounced Disney's statement because it was an ass-backwards, stupid thing for them to do and say. Iger never would have let that happen. Never would have let that happen. Anyway. But this is all ground we've covered already. But let's move on. I talked with half a dozen executives familiar with Disney and its culture. It seems that Iger, listen to this. It seems that Bob Iger either intentionally allowed Bob Chapek to shoot himself in the foot with Scarlett Johansson's team by failing to step in and negotiate an alternative to a lawsuit, or that he is so disconnected from his successor that he was not in the loop to step in as he usually would have. One of the big questions that a lot of us who are Disney fans and fans of the movie industry and of film and all that kind of stuff, one of the big things and questions a lot of us asked when the whole Scarlett Johansson thing started to come to light was like, where's Big Papa? Where's Big Papa Iger? Like, he's got to step in. He's got to stop this nonsense. He's got to step in and fix this. But according to a bunch of executives, yeah, either he just purposely let Chapek shoot himself, or they are so disconnected, he didn't even know what was going on. And it sounds like it was the second thing when we get a little bit further into this article. Either possibility says bad things about how leadership and succession is working at Disney. Oh, make no mistake about it. The biggest mistake that Bob Iger ever made at Disney was not necessarily the selection of Bob Chapek, but rather how this whole succession plan has been executed, because it has been ugly, it has been bumpy, it has been mismanaged, it has been miscommunicated, it has created alienation, it has just done bad things. I mean, if we want to point any fingers at Bob Iger, one of the ones we can rightfully point at him and say, man, you blew this succession plan. Or maybe Bob Iger just didn't appreciate how good he was at his job, and he just figured, yeah, other people can do my job. Nothing special about me. Maybe he just severely underestimated his own importance. I don't know. By the way, Lil Chet sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Lil Chet. I appreciate that, man. Anyway, let's read that last line again here. Either possibility says bad things about how leadership and succession is working at Disney. Now, this is where it starts to get interesting. Not that it hasn't been interesting already. This is where it starts to get interesting. One Disney insider told me that Iger found the lawsuit mortifying and thinks that Bob Chapek and the company bungled it, quote unquote, bungled it. But Xenia Mucha, Disney's chief communication officer, wrote in an email to her, none of that is true, period. She declined to elaborate. Mucha, who announced last month that she was leaving Disney early next year after 2 decades, also is the one that sent out that stupid statement last week, castigating Johansson. So here we have the founder of the Wrap saying, I've got a Disney executive telling me specifically that Bob Iger was mortified and that Disney and Bob Chapek bungled the whole situation. What do you expect? Asked a former Disney executive. So now a former Disney executive saying this. What do you expect? Asked a former Disney executive who called it an irksome rookie error. Chapek and Iger are not spending time and comparing notes and working to mutual success, which is kind of what you look for in a succession plan. Talent is important. You should proactively say, let's figure this out. One of the big problems with one of the things that has really bothered me most as a fan about Disney's handling of the Scarlett Johansson situation is when Scarlett Johansson's lawyers came out and publicly said, we have been trying to get Disney to come to the table and talk about this for ages, and Disney keeps ignoring us. Bob Iger never would have allowed that to happen. One of his pillars was strengthening relationships. And the very fact that Johansson's representatives are saying, we have been trying to get Disney to come to the table. We have been trying to get them to sit down with us and talk through this issue. And they just refuse. They just won't do it. And under Bob Iger, that never would have been allowed to have happened. Anyway, as the Wrap previously reported, Bob Chapek, who rose to CEO after running the theme parks division, has always been called out for one big hole in his resume: no talent relationships. And this is where having Bob Iger as executive chairman seemed absolutely critical. Having chosen Chapek after rejecting other veteran executives like Dave Rasulo, Tom Staggs, Kevin Mayer, the smooth-talking Iger could groom Chapek supposedly in this area of weakness. I am telling you what, I have spoken to Bob Iger before. And you know, there are jokes about there are some people you stand in their presence and you just kind of feel their greatness. God, I sound like a Bob Iger dick rider, but being it, so be it. I am telling you the truth. You ask anybody who has stood beside Bob Iger. When you stand beside Bob Iger in a room, you feel the greatness radiating off him. Like there's this reverence. Like I've been at big events and then stood by Bob Iger as other people approach, and you can just tell, like you just feel the reverence that comes over people as they start to approach Bob Iger. Like it's kind of a crazy thing, right? This dude is a smooth talker. She referred to them as a smooth talker. He is. This dude could sell ice to Canadians. I am telling you what, he could go to a Canadian household, you know, in the middle of Winnipeg when it's minus 30 and say, you know, you need some Iger ice. Iger ice, it'll keep your drinks cool, and you'll have that peace of mind knowing that if your drinks are ever too warm, Never mind, you could just open a window in Winnipeg and cool off everything in the house like that. I mean, he could sell us ice. That's what Bob Iger could do. Anyway, and this would have been a great area. Bob Chapek has no experience with talent relationships, which is something Iger is so good at. So if they had been working closely together, if Bob Chapek didn't suddenly get territorial, like, no, I'm CEO now. If that didn't happen, this probably could have all been avoided. It could have all been avoided. Let's keep going on here. Iger might have warned Chapek. Iger should have warned Chapek. I put in my own word there. Iger might have also warned Bob Chapek off leaving this in the hands of his distribution chief, Kareem Daniel. Do you remember a minute ago we talked about how he created this new layer of management, and instead of putting in somebody who was experienced, he picked one of his buddies who's been loyal to him, who had no experience in that area? This is where it comes into play. Iger might have also warned Chapek off of leaving this in the hands of his distribution chief, Kareem Daniel, an engineer turned investment banker with a ton of power and has zero experience in managing talent. Zero experience. An engineer who turned into an investment banker. Oh, you know who we should put in this new unnecessary position we just had, where all our studio presidents and creators are going to answer to him? You know who we should put in charge of that? That banker dude. Guy who's never had to work with talent before. That's a perfect choice. Mr. Chapek, we have a long list here of qualified people that could fill that role. Yeah, but he's been my boy. He and me have beers together, you see. So they put, and I'm sure he's a wonderful guy. I'm sure the dude's a wonderful guy. I've never met him. For all I know, he's the greatest human being in the world. But this person they put in there to kind of oversee this is a guy who's never had any experience in this. Anyway, Daniel, an engineer turned investment banker with a ton of power and zero experience in managing talent. The article goes on here. This signals that everything fell apart, the first Disney insider said. There are checks and balances in place to prevent things descending into lawsuits and insults. You have to blow by all the different restraint systems designed to keep everyone working together and playing nice. Scarlett's team didn't just go to the courthouse and sue. This is key. Listen to this. This is important, okay? A Disney insider said, we have checks and balances in place to make sure that lawsuits don't happen, and you have to blow by all of our different restraint systems designed to keep everybody working together and playing nice. Because listen, Scarlett Johansson's legal team didn't just suddenly out of nowhere get up and go to the courthouse to sue. This is something that could have been easily addressed and easily fixed with a little bit of Iger philosophy, with competent people in the right positions of power, by not creating unnecessary levels of power over your studio presidents who have these existing relationships. The Disney executive is pointing out, listen, Scarlett Johansson has been talking to us about this problem. We've all been aware there's been this problem. They've been trying to work this out behind the scenes. They didn't just suddenly surprise us by filing a lawsuit. It's like, what? Like the people over at Disney offices weren't like, oh my goodness, we had no idea Scarlett Johansson was upset or that she was going to be filing a lawsuit. No idea whatsoever. They knew. They knew. And Scarlett Johansson's legal team tried to get them to come to the table and talk. But instead, because you got Chapek in there and his boy, that's my boy, man. We do beers together. We're boys, him and me. Because you got these guys involved, they just bypassed all their safety checks and instantly said, ignore her. Ignore her. And then when she finally did file her lawsuit, they blew past all the safety checks again and just said, put out this statement. Let's call her sad. Let's blame her for the pandemic. And let's just say all this stuff. Just put it by. Meanwhile, there are layers of safety checks put in place at Disney that would have said, whoa, time out. We can't go out and make public statements like that about our talent. Do it. Just do it. Anyway. Once again, as the Disney executive said, everyone working together and playing nice, Scarlett's team didn't just go to the courthouse and sue. This executive at Disney also noted, with surprise, the anger in the company's statement about the lawsuit, which I can confirm both shocked and insulted Scarlett Johansson and her team. Another Disney watcher said it doesn't even matter. Given the fallout, whether the rift is real or not, it's a clear sign of dysfunction if anybody wonders if Bob Iger was involved or not. That in itself is proof of the rift. The very fact this Disney guy is saying that we're even wondering if Bob Iger was involved is absolute proof that you've got this massive division going on over there in the leadership of Disney. It's straight up proof. The very fact that we had to ask the question, did Iger get involved? The very fact that we even had to ask that question is proof that this thing has gotten out of hand, that the head offices over at Disney right now are an absolute shit show. Thanks to Bob Chapek. Let's go on here, because this is where they get into the meat of it a little bit here. How did it begin? Early in the pandemic, when Bob Chapek had only been CEO for a few months, Iger gave an interview to Ben Smith at the New York Times stating that he was stepping back in to a more active role. Do you remember this when this happened during the pandemic? Iger said, I'm going to step back into a more active role to help through the COVID crisis. Unfortunately, that was news to the new CEO, Bob Chapek, who felt blindsided and undermined. And listen, as much as I am like all Bob Iger, Big Papa Iger, go Bob Iger, I will say this. That was a mistake on Iger's part, because you've got a new CEO who's living in this giant shadow of the previous CEO, probably the most celebrated executive in Hollywood. And he's living in the shadow of Bob Iger, and he's now trying to establish his leadership. And then Bob Chapek hears through the news that Bob Iger's saying, I'm going to step back into a more active role to help navigate the crisis. Now, that's exactly what Bob Iger should have done. He should have stepped back in to help navigate the crisis. But 1,000%, Big Papa Iger should have got on the phone with little Bobby Boy Chapek and say, hey, Bobby Boy, we got to have a quick talk. This crisis going on. This is a lot going on. If it's cool with you, I'm going to let our shareholders know. I'm going to let our employees know that as a result of this big crisis, I'm going to step in a little bit and help out. Are you cool that I make that announcement? I don't want to step on your toes. You're the new CEO. He should have had communication with Bob Chapek. And on that is 100% Bob Iger's bad. That's Iger's bad. He should have done that. And I get it. Bob Chapek probably felt blindsided and undermined. And you know what? He wasn't wrong to feel that way, because that was the wrong move. Anyway, it has been a slow, this is where it really starts to be descriptive. We're getting to the end of the article here now. It has been a slow, ongoing drift since then. According to my sources who have been gossiping to me about this for at least 6 months, but only now have the consequences of that corporate estrangement become clear. Let's be honest. Bob Iger's tenure as CEO of the Walt Disney Company is historic, epic in every way. He drove the company to huge expansion, exciting acquisitions, and drove the stock price from $24 in 2005 when he became CEO to many times that value when he left in January of 2020. But if he blows the succession piece, his legacy will be tarnished. After all, even Michael Eisner figured out how to get that part right. Anyway, that is the basic rundown here of this article on Deadline. A wonderfully written piece giving us a lot of insight into what's been going on there and how did this whole Scarlett Johansson lawsuit thing happen. Something that would have been inconceivable. You keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. It would have been inconceivable 2 years ago that we would be seeing one of the foundational members of the Avengers coming out and suing Disney. One of the core original Avengers coming out and suing Disney. Absolutely inconceivable. So I can clearly not choose the drink in front of you. Sorry, I just watched The Princess Bride again. Perfect movie, by the way. So, but no, seriously, like I ask you guys to do that little exercise with me now. Imagine 2 years ago, pre-pandemic, everything is glory, glory, hallelujah. Disney, they're making billion-dollar film after billion-dollar film. Avengers is setting world box office records. Everybody is happy. Look at this picture. Look at proud Papa Iger there with Captain America and Scarlett Johansson and Alan Horn. By the way, the most underappreciated movie executive and maybe the most important movie executive of the past decade. Alan Horn, and then standing beside his protege there and Kevin Feige. I mean, it was all family. It was all family. And then did you guys see that YouTube video where like Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, Scarlett Johansson, Robert Downey Jr., they all went out and got the Avenger logo tattoos together. I mean, everything was kumbaya and reach arounds and everybody's having a good time. Now, fast forward 2 years and we've got everybody, none of the other Avengers people are saying shit. Nobody's defending Disney. You got one of the foundational members, Scarlett Johansson. Now we're hearing that Emma Stone, I should say, is contemplating now suing Disney as well. A lot of people are looking at this. And now we're finding out that it all comes from one place. An absolute botched transition in leadership to a guy who was fundamentally the wrong choice. You know, let me take that back. I still don't think Bob Chapek was the wrong choice. I think if Bob Chapek had done the right things once chosen, it could have worked out great. It could have worked out completely great. But when he starts adding layers of middle management, installing his friends into important positions, burning relationships with all these types of things, taking power away and neutering the power and the voice of the creators, these all became red flags. And then you start seeing Iger and Chapek, according to this article, no longer communicating. They're estranged from each other. They barely talk to each other. These mistakes get made. And now you've got this iconic figurehead of Disney and Bob Iger saying he is mortified and embarrassed. And that Bob Chapek and his team have botched the Scarlett Johansson thing. What more can you say about it? What more is there to say? They have completely, utterly botched this entire situation. And I will tell you what, the reason why this is important is because this is going to have a prolonged effect on the films that we see. As long as you got the wrong people having power and exerting influence and decision-making over the creators, you bet your ass. Now, not the upcoming movies. You know, Spider-Man No Way Home was in the gears were moving. Everything was happening before Chapek ever took over. Shang-Chi, long before Chapek. Eternals, long before Chapek. But I am telling you, once we start getting a year or two further down the line, when you have bad decision makers at the top, eventually that falls down. That eventually seeps through the topsoil and gets down to the roots when you got the wrong people exerting influence and decision-making over the creators who should be having that influence and should be making those decisions. It will eventually start affecting the end product. Not right away, but it'll eventually start affecting the end product. And it's just less fun being a Disney fan today, at least for me. I can only speak for myself. But seeing mom and dad fight, it doesn't make it feel good as a Disney fan. It does not make me feel good. It doesn't make me feel good at all. And honestly, I don't know what the answer here is. Here's the funny thing. It was only less than 24 hours ago. It was less than 24 hours ago that I made a companion video where I said, yeah, I don't like the job that Bob Chapek is doing, but you got to give him at least 2 more years. You got to give Bob Chapek at least 2 more years, because look at Troy Aikman, Hall of Fame quarterback. His first year, he went 0-11. 0-11, 0 wins. And he went on to win 3 Super Bowls, and he's a Hall of Famer now and all that kind of stuff. I said, yeah, I don't like the job Bob Chapek has been doing at all, but I think you got to give him at least 2 more years to really see what he can do. But then after reading that article, I don't know that I believe that anymore. I am sitting here today looking at a Disney that just a year and a half ago was a tight ship, that was running and firing on all cylinders, that had good relationships, that had an aura of success about it. And just a year and a half later, we're looking at infighting, division, pettiness, estrangement, and public, which is what Iger hates the most, public airing of grievances, with one of their core Avengers actually filing a lawsuit against them. And listen, we all change our minds about things. I don't know if I've ever changed my mind about something as fast as I changed my mind about the video I made yesterday saying, hey guys, we got to give Bob Chapek at least 2 more years. I don't know that I feel that anymore. To the point that last night before going to bed, I jumped on and said, help us, Iger Bob Kenobi. You're our only hope. Like, honestly, right now, and this is coming from, this is coming from a total layman's personal opinion who doesn't know all the inside dynamics at Disney, as somebody who is just a fan on the outside looking in, just like everybody else. Okay. So take my opinion with a massive grain of salt that it should be taken with. Honestly, right now, the only answer I see is that Bob Iger has got to call a meeting of the board, because he is still the chairman of the board, and say, and pull a Star Wars, the Phantom Menace, and say, I call for a vote of no confidence in Chancellor Chapek's leadership, and say, I will humbly take back the throne. I think Iger has got to come back. He's got to call a meeting of the board and say, we've got to remove Chapek. This has gotten way too out of hand, way too quickly. We have to steady the ship. We have to get the confidence of our employees, of our executives, and of our partners, and of the public back. We have to get that confidence back. Because right now, the public is losing confidence in us. Our talent is losing confidence in us. Our own executives are losing confidence in us, and probably the shareholders are losing confidence in us. We got to remove little Bobby, and I will step in for another year. I will take back over the CEO for another year, and we will start a more exhaustive succession plan search for a new CEO. And I'll just let Bob Iger know I'm available. God, you want to run Disney into the ground real quick? John Campea for Disney CEO. John, why have you changed every attraction at Disney parks to Mark Hamill Land? Never mind, just do it. John, why does every Disney movie now have to star Jennifer Garner? Shut up, don't question me. Just do it. John, why is the new Avengers headquarters in Canada? Because it's great. Go do it. Yeah, I would run Disney into the ground so effing fast. So freaking fast. Anyway. Yeah, I just, seeing how messy this thing's got, guys, I just didn't know that they have another option here. I think Big Papa Iger's got to come back in. I think what he needs to do, some of you won't get this reference at all. Some of you won't understand this reference. So just ignore what I'm about to say. But for those of you who do, right now in this picture, the next thing that has to happen is, Big Papa Bob Iger Shawn Michaels has to give some sweet chin music to Bob Marty Jannetty Chapek and kick him through a glass window right now. By the way, did any of you in the live chat understand that reference? Did any of you in the live chat get that reference? I don't know if you did, but yeah, that's what needs to happen right now. He's got to put his arm around him and then lean back, give that big sweet chin music super kick right to Marty Jannetty Chapek and put him through the window. That's what he's got to do. Oh, and Idol puts in there the barbershop thing. Ah, well done, dude. Well done. Yeah, I think that's the only thing that can happen here. I think that's the only thing that's going to straighten this ship right now. I see, unless Bob Chapek wakes up today and has like one of those come to Jesus moments where he realizes, what have I done? What kind of a mess have I created? I have got to start listening to some other people and get on the phone with Iger and say, listen, Bob, I have clearly made some wrong decisions here. What do we do to fix this? And how do we make sure this doesn't happen again moving forward? Like, I mean, I don't know, maybe Chapek has one of those moments. If so, great. If not, yeah, it's time for the sweet chin music. It's just time for that sweet chin music. And send Chapek packing. Or send him back to Parks. I mean, I don't know. So, yeah. Anyway, guys, I know that took up the entirety of the show today. So, I mean, I just thought that was something we really needed to talk about because Disney is not some small little indie film company. It is the most important name. Listen, whether you love Disney or not, I don't think we can argue or disagree that Disney is the most important name in the movie industry. You can hate them or you can love them. That's fine. But you have to, it's like, you can love or hate Vince McMahon. John, that's two wrestling references. I know, I don't know where they're coming from, but you can love or hate the name Vince McMahon, but you cannot deny he has been the most important figure in the world of professional wrestling for the last 40, 50 years. You can't deny it. Disney is the most important, the biggest, and the most vital and relevant name when it comes to the world of movies. And we are seeing a fundamental internal dismantling like we never would have imagined we would have seen. And I think this article on the Wrap, and by the way, again, I really want to encourage you guys to go on over to the Wrap and give this article, we just read through it, but seriously, I would highly encourage you to go over to that article, give it a read through yourself. It's some really, really interesting stuff. All right, guys, listen, question is, what do you think about that, about the article in general, the estrangement between Chapek and Iger, about the way, according, to Disney executives, Iger saying they botched the whole Scarlett Johansson thing, which is something a lot of us have been saying for a number of days now. And is it time? Do they just pull the ripcord and say, bye, Chapek, and kick him to the curb? Or can he, like Vader, after getting his ass handed to him by Luke, be redeemed? Can he be? You can see it though, can't you? Can't you? Doesn't Chapek look a little bit, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way. I don't. I really, really don't. I mean, doesn't Chapek look a little bit like Vader after Luke took his helmet off? Let me look on you with my own eyes. I mean, isn't that there a little bit? Am I seeing things? I don't know. I mean, that was a handsome man. There's there. Chapek, he's a handsome man. I'm not disparaging his appearance. That's a handsome man. He's a handsome man. I don't care what anybody says. That's a handsome man. But anyway, yeah. What do you guys think? Is there any salvaging of this situation? Does Chapek need to go? Will Big Papa Iger step back in? I don't think he will, but God, I think we need it. Anyway, guys, what do you think about this? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. Okay, guys. With all that down and out of the way, we're now going to move on and start taking your comments and questions that you guys have been firing in. And how do we select our comments and questions here on the John Campea Show? Well, we don't select them. You guys just send them in by going down into the description of this video. You'll see a tip link there. Just simply click on that or enter it in manually at www.streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. Just send that on in. You'll be getting your comment or question read on the show or in an upcoming companion video. if it's appropriate for the show. Like if you guys just send in like troll messages or are just messages straight up trying to be argumentative and they're not productive for the show, we're probably not going to use them on the show. But all the other ones we will get to. And of course, you're supporting the channel at the same time. And all of us involved here at the John Campea Show, thank you guys so very much for that support. Okay, I got to go through here now and see where I left off. I think I left off. Yes, that's where I left off. Okay, let's get on over now and start taking your live questions for the rest of our time here. We're going to go over to Hot Rod. And Hot Rod writes, I know how you hate how the MCU made Spider-Man Iron Man Jr. I mean, I love Spider-Man. I love the Tom Holland Spider-Man. But yeah, I don't like the way they made him Iron Man Jr. I don't like that. By the way, Zaid Habjoka sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Zaid. I appreciate that, man. But what do you think the odds are that there is an agreement between Marvel and Sony to let the latter have a more traditional Spider-Man story arc produced on their end? 0% chance of that. Seeing how Sony has Venom, Morbius, Kraven, and now Carnage in their lineup, and maybe Vulture, it would seem that when Spidey is done with the MCU, the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man will already have a loaded rogues gallery ready to go in New York City. Yeah, listen, it is... obviously, you're not going to see the live-action Spider-Man running around in the Sony universe while there's a different live-action Spider-Man running around in the MCU. So there's obviously that. So the relationship would have to end first, like that. The arrangement between Marvel and Sony, and who knows if they can renegotiate that relationship now that Iger's not the one pulling the trigger. But that arrangement will have to end, and then Sony will bring Spider-Man back into their universe. But at that point, it's going to be looked at as a fresh, different Spider-Man anyway, even if it is still Tom Holland. And I don't really think that they were like, okay, Marvel, you can have Spider-Man in your MCU, but only if you make him as much unlike Spider-Man as possible. I know, make him Iron Man Jr. I really don't think that was part of it. I mean, I don't know, Hot Rod, that's a different way of looking at it. Maybe you might be onto something, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think so, but you never know. You never know. By the way, Black Bono Lala sends in a super chat badge in live chat. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And yeah, some people are still asking, okay, wait a minute. I don't get it. What was the Sweet Chin music thing? And yes, Spencer Cooper in the live chat. It was the Rockers. You remembered it correctly. It was indeed the Rockers. All right, let's move on here. Next up, we've got Cutter Hale writes, one of two. Me and my cousin are super pumped for Free Guy. Dude, it's so much fun. I had Free Guy, the review embargo, and I have my initial out of the theater reaction up on my YouTube channel right now. The review embargo lifts tomorrow, so I'll do a full review of it tomorrow morning, but it's great. I really had a lot of fun with Free Guy. Anyway, I saw that tickets finally went on sale this morning, but when I went on my theater's website, there is no showtimes posted. They only had showtimes for Respect posted to the closest theater. The closest theater they had Free Guy tickets is 30 miles away. Has this ever happened to you where tickets were on sale, but not at your theater? I'm beyond excited for Free Guy, but hopefully they add showtimes to my theater. Can't wait for a review. Bring on the filthy. And yes, the answer to that is yes. It happens. Sometimes, tickets go on sale for a certain movie. I look on my closest movie theater and there's nothing available yet. It doesn't happen often, but it happens. Normally what that is just a little technical thing. What I would do if I were you, Cutter, is actually get on the phone and give the theater a call and say, hey, I just noticed that tickets for Free Guy have gone on sale, but I haven't seen them listed on your website yet. Is that coming? And they'll say, oh, yeah. We're launching that on the site at like 2 p.m. today or whatever. Or they'll say, yeah, we're having problems. You got to come down in person and pick up, whatever. What I would do, Cutter, before buying tickets to that theater that's 30 miles away, and Free Guy is worth that drive, but before doing that, I would get on the phone and give the theater an actual call. Ask to speak to the manager. They'll always talk to you. And just mention your situation. Be polite. Say, hey, yeah, I'm excited to see this. I'm excited to see it at your theater. I just noticed the tickets weren't listed on your site. Is there a delay? Is the movie not playing there? How do I get tickets to see it at your wonderful facility? And I'm sure they'll help you out. Anyway, good question, Cutter. Next up, Lexi Forbes writes, hey, John and Rob. Rob's not here today, unfortunately. Were you guys a fan of The Phantom with Billy Zane? Listen to your friend Billy Zane. Anybody know that movie? live chat. Kudos to the first person who puts that in. You should listen to your friend Billy Zane. He's a cool guy. Who knows that? Who knows that? I'm going to keep my eye on the live chat to see who the first. There it is. Alex. Alex is the first one who got it. Zoolander, Yellow Flash, Greg Scott, Ben Rayner, and a bunch of you other guys also got to. But kudos to Alex, was the first one to get it. A little bit of Zoolander. Anyway, were you guys a fan of Phantom 1996 starring Billy Zane? Do you think now is a good time to reboot the franchise? I'm going to be honest with you. As much as my friend Billy Zane is a cool guy, and I actually really do like Billy Zane, as a matter of fact. I really do like Billy Zane. I'm not going to lie. I was never, Zevia Cola, sponsor me, you cheap, insufferable sons of bitches. Yeah, I was never a fan of the Phantom, to be honest with you. I was never big. I think maybe the first time I saw it, I might have got a bit of a kick out of it. But then, like, as other movies became available, and I don't know, I just can't see that one getting rebooted. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that. What do you guys, like, if there was a new Phantom movie come out, would you guys be down for that? I mean, I honestly don't know that there would be an audience for it. So I'm going to say probably not, Lexi. Probably not, but you never know. You never know. There might be a bigger, audience for that. I'm seeing some people saying, no, not really. Mark Newman is saying, I like the Phantom in a crazy 90s cheese kind of way. Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, different response to that, Lexi. Next up, Gabby writes, hey, John and Co. Regarding Jungle Cruise box office numbers, my wife and I planned on taking our 12 and 8-year-old kids to see it this weekend, but we changed our mind because of the skyrocketing COVID cases here in Florida. Both my wife and I are fully vaccinated, and our 12-year-old son will get his second vaccination on Thursday. Still, since AMC in Florida lifted all the seat restrictions, I don't feel comfortable taking my kids in a crowded, because kids are like amongst the highest growth rates in the virus right now. I don't feel comfortable taking my kids in a crowded theater where potentially half of the people are not vaccinated. Also, the only time we purchased a PVOD on Disney Plus was Mulan, and it was a letdown. Therefore, we haven't purchased another Disney Plus PVOD movie since. This is just my experience, but I suspect COVID resurgence kept many other families like us at home from the theaters. And yeah, listen, I completely agree, and I understand. I do. I completely understand, especially if you got kids. Like, Ann and I are both fully vaccinated, so we feel pretty comfortable and pretty safe going out. I mean, being vaccinated doesn't 100% mean you won't get it, but it drastically increases your chances of not getting it. But still, I think if we had kids, though, I might feel the same way you do, Gabby. But here's the kicker. While I agree that as far as Jungle Cruise goes, that the Delta variant has caused a good number of people to rethink the idea of going out and sitting in a crowded movie theater, particularly those who aren't vaccinated. It only makes it even more astonishing that its Disney Plus performance was so piss poor. Because with more and more people not going to the theater, that means there were more and more people just sitting at home. Which means there were more and more people like you distinctly making the decision, I don't want to get it on Disney Plus. Now, I said this before, I will say it again. Nobody in their right damn mind ever expected that a Jungle Cruise would get similar numbers that Black Widow did. Like, nobody in their sane mind would think that. But given the Delta variant, given that it has the biggest movie star in the world, given that more and more people were staying at home, that should have boosted its numbers. Instead, it got half of what Black Widow did on Disney Plus because people just weren't interested in getting on Disney Premium Plus. So anyway, I can totally see what you're saying there, man. I totally get it. I totally do. All right. Thanks for sharing that, Gabby. Next up, Brandon Visconti writes, hey, man. So I love the series Gotham and I love Batman. Not as much as Spider-Man. Bring on the Spider-Verse. That being said, would you like to see a Batman movie with the cast of Gotham? I really like the Gotham series, and I love the villains in it. All right. I'm going to be honest with you, man. I am not a fan of the Gotham series. Now, let me restate that. Gotham to me was very hit and miss. It was quite hit and miss. Because when you had guys, I got the IMDb page open right here. Donald Logue was great in it. Ben McKenzie, the star of the show as James Gordon, was great. Who was it? I mean, Sean Pertwee, who played Alfred. I thought they had a great Alfred in the show, like a really, really good. Robin Lord Taylor, who played Penguin. I really, really liked him in it. Here's the catch, though. The thing is that when Gotham was actually about James Gordon, and Gotham was about this cop, James Gordon, trying to keep a city together in the era before Batman came along. When it was about James Gordon, the show for me totally worked. It totally worked, and I really enjoyed it. The problem is, so many times, the showrunners, in my opinion, lost their way. They lost their way. And they gave into the temptation of trying to make it a Batman show. The starting principle of it was the gritty city of Gotham, where this cop, James Gordon, a lone good cop in a dirty system, trying to keep the city together. When the show was about that, it was great. But more and more, it became about a Batman show without Batman. And then more and more of the show started to focus itself on, the young Bruce Wayne. And all this idiotic foreshadowing. Look, everybody, see how he's putting on the black cape? Ooh, did you know that this boy becomes Batman? I bet you didn't know. It's like, whenever it became a Batman light show, I found it difficult to watch. The quality was bad, I thought, personally. But when it was about James Gordon fighting crime, I thought it was really worked. But I just thought they got really misdirected and misguided. So look, I can only speak for myself here, Brandon. Only speaking for myself. I personally would not be down for a, crossing Batman over with that because I got tired of it, to be honest with you. I thought it was a show that had a lot of potential, but I just thought it lost its way. But that's just me. I'm sure many other people would, though. Probably many of you guys in the live chat would enjoy seeing that, but for me, not so much. All right. Where are we at here? We are at Optimus Prime Rib writes, 2021, it feels worse than 2020. Last year, we were more okay with masking and pausing our lives because at least all were vulnerable. This year, those who got vaccinated should not be punished with masking again and having our movies delayed because of anti-vaxxers. Well, first of all, let me just address that. I just went to the dentist this morning. All I had to do when I was getting out of my car, I was like, oh yeah, right, I'm going to the medical office, put on my mask. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. And I get it. You're vaccinated. You feel like you shouldn't have to. I understand. Believe me, I understand. I don't walk out my door thinking, oh, I need to grab my mask because I'm vaccinated. I don't think that either. But I'm not put off either when I get to a place and it says, oh, we require masks to come in here. Okay, that's fine. It's not a big deal. I don't really care. And here's the other thing too. It's not just anti-vaxxers. The fact of the matter is, I read a good report today that said, look, there are still a lot of people in the United States who want to get vaccinated, but they simply can't because there is still only so much supply. Like if you're in Los Angeles, you can get vaccinated easy. You can just make one quick phone call, go to the center, go get vaccinated, done. But there are a lot of places in the country where even if you're waiting, you're on a wait list to get vaccinated, and it could take months. So remember, it's not just anti-vaxxers. There's also people who do want to get vaccinated and they just haven't been able to yet. You got to keep that in mind. So, hey, whatever keeps my neighbors safe, whatever keeps the people around me feeling comfortable and safe. If that means I got to put on a mask even as a vaccinated person, I'll do it. I don't care. Not a big deal. Not a big deal to me. But that's just me. Anyway, thanks for sharing your thoughts. All right, next up, Jabin Carter writes, we all love our franchises. There's something so satisfying about buying into a great canon or lore. That being said, what do you think is the most mishandled franchise or book in film, i.e. poorly follows its own continuity or other inconsistencies? Well, I mean, here's the thing, Jabin. I'm going to say something kind of unpopular. To me, if you're doing an adaptation from pre-existing material, whether it's a book, comic books, an old TV show, whatever, you've heard me say this before. What I'm not looking for is how close do they stay to the source material. I don't care how close you stay to the source material. That is not your number one job. The number one job of a director of an adaptation movie is not stick as close as you can to the source material. I don't believe that. I believe the number one job is make the best movie possible. And quite frankly, there's a reason why the printed page is a different medium than live action stuff. Some stuff that works in a story on a printed page will just work better there, and maybe it wouldn't translate so well onto the big screen. You make changes. Also, a lot of books are like 600 pages long. Well, a screenplay is about 200 pages long. So you got to adapt. You look at some of the best Marvel movies, take massive liberties. Yeah, we often talk about Civil War. Civil War ain't nothing like the Civil War story in the comic books. I mean, it borrows some themes. Thematically, it follows some ideas. But, I mean, it is such a different story. One of the best comic book movies I think ever made, X-Men Days of Future Past. Completely different from the X-Men Days of Future Past comic book, right? So, I don't personally look at a property or a franchise, Jabin, and think, if this is inconsistent with the source material, that means it's bad. I mean, I know a lot of people feel that way, but I personally don't. By the way, Nikodos Proestos sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, man. I appreciate that very much. And anyway, yeah, so that's just me. So I don't know. I don't know what I would say about what is the most mismanaged franchise. I mean, I guess for me, I'd have to say the Transformers. And it feels weird saying that because a number of these Transformers movies made like in the billions of dollars. But yeah, for me, yeah, I think that was I love the first film. I did. I love the first Transformers movies, but every other one since, until we finally got to Bumblebee, which was great, directed by Travis Knight, who did such a great job with that movie. But all the other ones I thought were absolute shite, like just terrible. And I'd say that was probably the most mismanaged franchise, in my opinion. All right, thanks for sending that in, Jabin. Appreciate it, man. Next up, Jabin also writes, following up, what is the best executed canon or lore that you can think of in book or film, i.e. builds upon itself very well, weaves together its intricate stories in a synergistic and satisfying way? To me, if we limit it to the original trilogy, Star Wars. Like how that story just built one on top of the other, on top of the next, and led to this incredible finale, Star Wars. If you want to talk about like the whole thing together, I don't know how you don't say the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I mean, that's just been, and which is very inconsistent with the source material, but still, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, you're now getting into numbers. Like we're talking, what are we now into? 24, 25, 26, 27. I think we've got our 28th individual project about to come out. And the way they have interwoven it, connected it, and pretty much constantly kept it really high quality. I think we got to say the Marvel Cinematic Universe. At least that's my take on it at any rate. All right, thanks for writing that in, Jabin. Next up, Tron writes, while I am hyped for Venom 2, it got me wondering whatever happened to Morbius. Looked up the release date and it is January 28th, 2022. Ouch. Do you think Sony doesn't have confidence in it given the release date? And what are your expectations of the film? No, I can tell you this. I can't tell you how. I know that Sony is very confident in Morbius. They're very confident in Morbius. Right now, release dates under our current circumstances do not mean what they used to mean. Now, before the pandemic, there were certain months that were considered graveyards where studios just sent movies to die. In this pandemic era, that's really not a consideration right now. That's really not a consideration. The January release date isn't anything to be worried about. It's nothing to be excited about, but it's nothing to be worried about either. So all I can tell you is that Sony is very, very bullish on Morbius. They're very happy with it. They're very happy with it. Now, that doesn't automatically mean I'll be happy with it. It doesn't automatically mean you'll be happy with it, but I can tell you they are absolutely confident in that film. Personally, I've loved the trailers. I've loved the trailers personally, but that's just me. By the way, Jamie Cool sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate that, man. All right, let's move on here. Next up, we got Great Grabthar's Hammer, who writes, regarding your issues inverting the mouse in Final Fantasy XIV, yeah, I was telling people that after I finally was able to get it installed, because it had massive issues getting installed. But once I got Final Fantasy XIV installed, I couldn't figure out a way to invert the axis of the mouse, which is how I absolutely play every video game that I play. Anyway, press the escape key or select system in the main menu. I've done that. Then select character configuration. I think I've done that. The control settings tab is in the top left corner, and that window, and you'll notice you'll find the options to change that there. Now, I've been going into the mouse control area where I can set the sensitivity of the mouse and everything. That's normally where an invert mouse control thing would be, but you're saying it's somewhere else. I will go check that out. Thank you for the insight on that, Great Grabthar. I appreciate that, dude. All right. Next up, Alan writes, hey, John. Have you seen the newest piece of marketing Ryan Reynolds put out for Free Guy? Oh, yes. I laughed so hard, and I swear this guy is a marketing genius. He did a Dwayne Johnson pec flex, and I am all for it, LOL. So you guys have probably seen that Ryan Reynolds thing that he put out promoting Free Guy with the character Dude. It's hilarious. Absolutely fantastic. I will tell you this. I kind of wish I hadn't seen it. Not because it ruined anything, not at all, but I do kind of wish that the first time I saw Dude, because you got, Ryan Reynolds as Guy, and then he's this other character as well called Dude. I wish the first time I saw Dude was actually in the movie. That being said, the promo spot is hilarious. It's absolutely hilarious. So if you haven't seen it and you want to, just search Free Guy, Ryan Reynolds, Dude, and you should be able to find the ad spot. But if you don't want to have that little bit surprised for you, wait till you see the movie, and the movie is great. And by the way, our friend Ryan Roth sends in a super chat badge in the live chat. Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate that, man. All right. Next up, we've got Cincinnati's 5-star Barber writes, hey, John. I wanted to thank you for rereading my letter to you and the show a couple of weeks ago. I remember this, yes. After being interrupted by that punk-ass epileptic monkey with the wrench, LOL, you really pulled out your mighty Dom arms and showed him who's boss, LOL. So for those of you who don't remember, Cincinnati 5-star Barber, who apparently literally is the barber for the Cincinnati Bengals, wrote in some messages, and while I was reading his messages and I was starting to answer his messages, YouTube's streaming thing went out, and I got that damn monkey that YouTube graphic that goes up when something's wrong with YouTube, that monkey with the wrench. I was getting that, and it ended our stream prematurely. Guys, don't you hate it when you end prematurely? Never happens to me, of course, but don't you hate it when you end prematurely? Anyway, so what I decided was, listen, this dude wrote in some really good messages. When I started the next show, I read his messages again, because who knows? I don't know when it ended, whatever. But yeah, I wanted to read that through again. Anyway, so thanks for writing in, Cincinnati. Next up. Cincinnati also writes in part 2. Thank you for welcoming me into the Giovanni Campea family. And know that you'll be hearing from me much more in the future. That's good to know. It was awesome to hear your story about Ray. Of course, my brother-in-law, Ray, who does our graphics, he is a huge Cincinnati Bengals fan. And I think Ray is in the live chat right now. So, hey, Ray, just so you know, this guy is actually the guy who he's the official barber for the Bengals. I don't know if you knew that, but anyway, so I told him that Ray's a huge fan of the Bengals. Where are we at here? By the way, he and I are not only Bengals fans, but also Leos. It was just Ray's birthday the other day. Part 3. My birthday is August 8th, so happy belated to your brother-in-law. If you guys ever make it to Cincinnati, great haircuts and Bengals tickets are on me. You hear that, Ray? Bengals tickets. We might have to go do that. I can get out to the East Coast. And oh yeah, please bring Kim. Please bring Kim. I always wanted you and Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett to know how much I appreciate you both of your shows. And Rob, brah, LOL, my Hot Toys collection is also pretty dope, by the way. After watching the amazing movie, The Last Samurai, again, for the first time in years, I have to admit that I'm a tad bit jealous of your 6th scale Nathan Algren. That was an awesome figure, brother. Anyway, guys, continue to bring that utter filth, and I'm out. Yeah, so those of you who don't know, like when Robert Meyer Burnett is on screen behind me and Ray is saying, I'm not crying, you're crying. I like that. When you see Robert Meyer Burnett, if you look on the shelf behind him, like one of his, I think his most prized, he's got hundreds of Hot Toys and 1/6 scale figures, right? But I think he has said before, his absolute most prized one is his Tom Cruise one from The Last Samurai. And it's awesome. I've seen it. It's incredible. I always drool. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Whenever I look at Robert's stuff, I get so jealous. I mean, I can't bring myself to spend that kind of money on those things, but oh my God, I would love to have them. Oh my God, I would love to have them so much. Anyway, let's keep going on. Thanks for writing that in, Cincy. I really appreciate it, dude. And who knows, maybe we'll get down to Cincinnati. Okay, next up. Chuck the Mystery writes, well, John, for me, Friday is game day. I'll be seeing my most anticipated movie of the year, The Suicide Squad. First, do you have any final predictions for the weekend box office, bearing in mind that HBO and the health concerns? Second, were there any characters in the film that you felt were extremely underused, whom you would have liked to see more development for, and finally, will we see Harley Quinn again in the future DC films, even if the movie performs like Jungle Cruise did? Thanks. Well, okay, first of all, Chuck, I'm not going to answer any of those questions in the second part. I mean, obviously I can't. I'm not going to tell you, because if I start telling you, oh yeah, this character was like, because I don't want to give anything away for the movie. So I apologize, but I cannot answer any of those questions. That being said, to your first part, what is my box office prediction for it? That is tough because there are several factors that make trying to guess what Suicide Squad box office is going to be way more difficult than the average movie. Because number one, it's got to carry with it the baggage of that last Suicide Squad movie. Now listen, I like the last Suicide Squad movie. I know it's a hot mess, but I don't care. I had fun. I had fun watching that Suicide Squad. I know a lot of people hate it, and that's cool. You hate it all you want. It's all good. We all have different tastes. But for me, I had a lot of fun with it. But still, a lot of people hated it. And because a lot of people hated it, that means it's got baggage. The name Suicide Squad has baggage. So it's got to overcome that. Number two, if they got backstabbed by HBO and they're putting it out on HBO Max on the same day that it's releasing in theaters, that is going to hurt its box office. So you've got the baggage is going to hurt its box office. You've got it coming out on HBO Max, which is going to hurt its box office. Third, you got the Delta variant blowing up again. That doesn't affect a lot of people, but it does affect some other people. So that's going to hurt its box office. On top of that, it is very much an R-rated movie. Now, to some people, that's very exciting, but it also means their audience, it limits their audience a little bit. You know, a lot of, like, I literally had a buddy of mine call me and say, hey, I'm going to Suicide Squad. Is it something I can take my kid to? You know, and that's a very real question because it is a gory, balls to the wall, bonkers, very rated R movie. So that's going to hurt its box office. Now, juxtaposed against all those things that's going to hurt its box office, you've got the other side that it's amazing. The movie's amazing. It's so much fun. It might be my favorite movie of the year so far. Now, I'm not 100% saying that. Like, I still think A Quiet Place Part 2 is still my number one movie of the year, but my God, it ranks right up there. It might be my number one favorite film of the year. It's just incredible. So, incredible film. All these things that are going to hurt its box office. Where does the box office actually come in at? I will make a guess, okay? Here's my guess. And no one's going to like it. $31 million. I know, that's terrible. That's terrible. This movie deserves to have a $150 million opening. James Gunn has done it again. This movie deserves a $150 million opening. I'm going to go 32. 32. I mean, it's R, so that's going to limit its audience. The pandemic, that's going to limit its audience. A lot of people don't trust the name Suicide Squad. That's going to limit the audience. Some people are going to want to do the ridiculous thing of watching it sitting on their asses at home instead of getting a true theatrical experience. That's going to hurt its box office. I'm going to say 32. I see a lot of you guys in the chat saying like 45. So I hope you're right. I hope you're right, because this movie deserves every freaking dollar. Every freaking dollar this movie deserves. And that's just kind of my take on it. Okay. Hope you guys in the live chat, and some of you guys are saying 50. I hope you're right. Again, I'm not confident about that number either. I'm just saying it's hard to tell with all these variables at play. It's really, really tough to really nail down a guess on that one. Anyway, next up. Oh, that was just one of two. Oh, no, sorry. Then I can't really answer the second part, right? All right, Free Austin Matthews writes, I think Loki was a cool series, but I really don't like time travel stories. I'm not a big fan of time travel stories myself. I mean, there are exceptions, but generally speaking, I'm not a big fan of time travel stories either. I spent most of the time watching this show trying to figure out if a different timeline is an alternate universe, or if every universe is on one timeline. I think the coolest parts about Loki are the Asgard Game of Thrones attributes from the old movies. I just don't see him as a time travel character. It felt so out of place. Also, in 6 years, the MCU will officially be 20 years old. Is that weird? Guys, think about that for a second. And now, granted, that's not happening tomorrow. It's not happening tomorrow. But next year, the MCU is turning 15. The MCU is turning 15 next year. That means, oh God, I hate thinking about it like this. That means there are some of you watching this show right now that you have never lived in a world where there wasn't the MCU. Think about that, everybody over 30. You want to feel old? There are people watching this show right now who have never lived in a world. Alex Keeley is saying, that's me. Fuck you, Alex. So there are literally people watching this thing right now where they have never lived in a world where there was not an MCU. And again, fuck you, Alex. Isn't that crazy? Is that not crazy? That is utterly ridiculous. And in 6 years, it's turning 20. But yeah, next year it turns 15. Man, next year it turns 15. Really, really cool. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, man. Appreciate that. Oh, that's something to think about. All right, Dakota writes in. What classic 80s movie would you like to see a sequel to with the same actors? Oh, with the same actors. Personally, I would like to see a sequel to Firewalker. I wasn't big on Firewalker, to be honest with you. Firewalker is a classic, is the Chuck Norris one. It was a classic cheesy 80s movie. Hey, Chuck Norris and Louis Gossett Jr. Could pull it off. Classic 80s cheese. That's a great question, Dakota. Here's the problem. I do not walk around. I'm not a movie dates guy. I'm not a movie dates guy. So I can't even remember like which movies were 90s and which movies were 80s. Like I honestly, I'm so disconnected from movie dates. Like I'm not Scott Mantz. Scott Mantz, God, is like a high witchcraft lord wizard of freaking movie dates. It's nuts. You name a movie, he'll tell you the release date. He won't just tell you the year it came out. He could probably tell you the release date. It's crazy. I am definitely not that. I am definitely not that. So I don't know. I can't even think of what movies were the 80s. I don't know. I mean, look, there are some that are still going, like Rambo. I believe Rambo got started. Like First Blood was an 80s movie, if I'm not mistaken. Oh, Talia in the live chat is saying Golden Child. You know what? I could be down for a Golden Child. I must be purged. I remember. You guys remember that? You know what? Golden Child gets a lot of hate. I don't care. I like Golden Child. Oh, I know. Although I'm not 100% sure it was an 80s film. Hold a second. Let me just look if it was an 80s film or not. I'm not going to say what it was because first I want to say, first I want to see if I'm right about it or not. Damn it. No, I wasn't. It was a 90s movie. I was going to say The Shadow with Alec Baldwin, but it's 94. See, it was even close to the 80s. I don't know movie dates. Yeah, I was going to say The Shadow. The Shadow with Alec Baldwin, but nah, yeah, that doesn't work. Can't do it. So I don't know. I'd have to think about that. I have to actually go sit down and go through a list and look at what was in the 80s or not, but it's a great question, man. All right. Running out of time here. But we'll get through just a couple more here. We'll go to Bojax, who writes, one of two. Hi, John. The episode for the What If show confirmed, or the executive producer for the What If show confirmed that Loki paved the way for the show, saying it's no coincidence that the show picks up right after Loki. The multiverse has erupted in every possible direction. What If gives us a chance to explore that. So, if the show does end up being a result of what happened in Loki and possibly have direct tie-ins to future live-action MCU projects, oh God, I hope it doesn't. Do you think it will make people more likely to tune in? So here's the thing. Back at D23, Kevin Feige really emphasized that What If is completely disconnected from everything else. Like, it's truly a What If series. Because you guys know, like with the comics in both Elseworlds and What Ifs, they're completely separate. They're not actually connected to anything else. They're just completely separate stories. And Kevin Feige really kind of asserted that that was going to be the case. Now, you got these people saying that the What Ifs are kind of tied to, like at the end of Loki, as we saw the time stream branching into millions of little branches, that the What If series, all the individual stories take place on one of those millions of little time variant branches that breaks off at the end. And they're saying it is now canon. The question though is it really canon? Like, because if it happens in some obscure little universe timeline, if it's not really directly influencing or actually being a part of the actual MCU, is it really canon? Or are you just using that as semantics to help promote the show? I don't know. I think it's a stupid idea to do these things and then to try to actually bring them into the mainline DCU. I think it's totally a dumb idea. I'm not going to lie to you. I think it would be a totally idiotic idea. And I don't think they're going to do that. But I don't know that. I don't think they will, but they could. Look, I'm going to be straight up with you. I've never had any interest in this What If series. I have no interest in it. I had the opportunity to watch the first 3 episodes, and I just skipped it. I just passed. So I don't know. Listen, if I start hearing, it could be like the Harley Quinn situation, right? I had no interest in Harley Quinn whatsoever. But then everybody started telling me, John, you would love this Harley Quinn show. So I'm like, fine, I'll check it out. It's probably going to suck. Like all the other Marvel and DC straight to home video animations. It's probably going to suck. And then I watched Harley Quinn. Bam. One of my favorite things on TV. And maybe What If will be that for me too. So if I hear from a whole ton of you guys that it's totally awesome, maybe I'll give it a shot. Maybe it'll be my next Harley Quinn. But until that happens, I'm just being honest. I'm just being real with you guys. My job isn't to tell you what I think you want to hear. I'll always be honest with you. I'm just not interested in it. I have no interest in it. But let's see. Let's see how it turns out. All right. One more, then we'll wrap it up here today. Bojax also writes in, "Hey, John, because of their recent mess, do you think Disney might experiment with having a tiered release for their films? 35 to 45 day theatrical exclusive, then over to premiere for 30 days at $20 instead of $30, then on to Disney Plus after the premiere window." Well, here's the funny thing, Bojax. That's kind of exactly what the traditional release model is. The traditional release model makes the studio way more money. They put it out for a theatrical exclusive release and they make hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. Then, after a certain theatrical window, it gets released on PVOD and people can buy the movie digitally and pay $20, $30, $40. That's kind of what Disney Plus Premium Access is now. And then, after a period of time of that, then it can just go on a regular streaming service for quote unquote free or whatever. That is the model that Disney should be following. Put it out theatrically exclusive, make tons of money. Then put it out for premium access where people can buy it early once it's out of the theatrical window, and they'll make money. And then after a period of time after that, then just put it on Disney Plus and it becomes a part of your library, your ever-growing catalog, so more people come and sign up to Disney Plus. Win, win, win. That's what they should do. Whether it's what they will do, I don't know. I do know this. Even though Jungle Cruise was the last film that they currently have scheduled to do that premium access $30 thing with, it won't be their last. It's the last one they've got scheduled, but there will be more. And there should be more. They need to test it out more. They need to give it more of a chance. Even though I don't like it, they need to give it more of a chance. So there will be more. But what will they ultimately land on? Don't know. A lot will have to do with whether Bob Chapek is still the CEO of Disney or not. But we'll have to see from that. All right, guys, listen. That will do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. We, of course, got more questions to come from Anonymous, Baked Orc, I love that name, Ruben Wakefield, and others. Do not worry, guys. A little bit later today, I will be doing a companion video, much like I did yesterday. We'll have a companion video and get caught up some more on more of these questions. And guys, don't forget, on tomorrow's show, I'm very, very excited about this. We've got Real Rejects, Greg Alba here, and one of the stars of the upcoming Will Smith movie, King Richard. You just saw her in the trailer for that thing. Erin Cummings will be here tomorrow as well. So we'll have a bunch of things that we're going to be talking about. Hope you guys will come along and join us as well. Okay, guys, that'll do it for me for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here. Remember to do the four main things, everyone. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.